Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to another episode, a special edition episode of Local Marana. I'm going to give you a real quick update on traffic and weather. It's rush hour, so it's jammed out there on 10 and 17 or 19, and it's also going to be hot till October. The reason why we're cutting that all short is we have a special guest in the studio with us this morning, Miss Jan Lesher. Welcome.
Clint, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for letting me join you today.
It's a pleasure. Anyone that doesn't know, that might be one or two people out there, you are
I'm the county administrator.
Yes. Since you're
About
coming up on 2 years.
Yeah. 2.5 years. Well, formally, yeah. Because many know my predecessor, Mr. Huckleberry, and he was in an accident the end of October of 21.
Right.
So I was acting for a little while and then became formally the county administrator in April. But
Yes.
feel like I can tell you the number of days if you want me to open my app real quick. But
About 800 and some as officially retired. You know, you and I have never really formally met.
No,
We've
we've
waved
not.
at each other
That's
a few
right.
times at public events, but we know a lot of the same people, and they all said this morning that I was talking to. Say hello to Jan for me.
We were chatting this morning. Ed Honey, again, yes, sir, my favorite mayor, and Terry Rosema, of course, the manager. It's just such a great team out here. And I know you had the county's emergency direct manager on,
Right.
Shane, was out here. And
Happy belated birthday to Shane
that's right,
yesterday.
Mr. Clark, thank you.
Yeah, must have been 39 again. I'm guessing.
Once again.
And a special shout out to Dr. Sylvia Lee, Supervisor 3,
absolutely.
who we had on a month or so ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. And she left here saying, I'm going to get the county administrator on for you. And I said, please do. And immediately your
so
staff
glad.
went to work, and boom,
we're
here
here.
we are.
You got it.
So this is exciting. And as I said to you off camera, this is your hour. So I want to find out as much and share with the community who you are. I know you're a native. You just mentioned 3 gens.
That's right.
Here.
Happy to chat about all that. Love this town.
And I
So
want to
good
talk to you about
it.
your time with Governor Napolitano and all that time. So
Love to.
That's just the time frame. You grew up here. Where'd you graduate school, et cetera?
Well, Clint, as you and I were chatting before we went on the air, I'm a third generation Tucsonan. And my grandfather's, actually my grandfather and my grandmother both started at the University of Arizona in 1914.
That was the year of the state, wasn't it?
Yep.
14?
Oh, yeah.
We could
I
say.
think back of, they did not know each other at the time, but my grandmother, who got on a steamer to come from the East Coast all the way around, the United States to get to Arizona in the early 1900s, is a pretty amazing thing, I think. But and then my grandfather went on to be the registrar and the tennis coach at the U of A. So I'm the third of 4 generations of U of A graduates, but you'll understand if you know this town, I'm a graduate of Sam Hughes, Mansfield, Tucson High, and the U of A. So I pretty much went up and down one street for my entire educational career. But I've just loved it. I'm so proud. And I think like many of us, it's my hometown. I left for a while. We all leave a hometown a little bit, and then I'd be living someplace else and wondering what the heck I was doing. So it was time to come back to Tucson and never look back, loving it here.
As I mentioned to you off camera, I've been here 22 years. This is my hometown.
Yeah, it feels
It
that
really
way.
is. It feels that way. I know people. I remember a friend of mine, Rick Peralt, said at the time when I moved here, he goes, Clint, this is like the biggest small town you've ever been in.
Absolutely is.
And everybody knows everybody, so just know that going in. Now, I would treat everybody the same, regardless.
Correct,
but I've looked back and I've said to him numerous times, you were right. Everybody is.
Everybody. Well, I tell
interlocked.
people that it's there's about 19 people who have just inbred for generations, I think, is how it all started. Because if you talk to somebody long enough, everybody's related to somebody or knew somebody. Or again, coming from this town, I find that if I hear somebody's been in Tucson long enough, you always ask what high school they went to. You know, we go back to some of those old days.
That
That's
tells
right.
the natives
Absolutely.
from the non-natives. I
That's
see
how
that.
we know.
I'm not a native, as I mentioned, but I got here as quick as I could.
Well, you can tell people you're a Badger from Tucson High. I'll cover for you if you need it.
So you grew up, you graduated here. Then what happened? What'd you do? Where'd you go?
Well, Clint, I'll just tell you, I'm so lucky. I've been blessed that I've had some of the best jobs imaginable, and I'm one of those really lucky people who's always been able to have a job, and that's wonderful. I think my very first job, I was there's a Baskin-Robbins. It was over by Himmel Park. People know it. It's on Speedway, just the other side of Tucson Boulevard. And I started there scooping ice cream when I was 15, and pretty much haven't looked back. And when there was a time I started a company, but I'm trying to think back. A lot of it, most of the end of the 70s and into the 80s, I was in cable television. And I think a lot of people don't remember that cable television wasn't allowed in the top 100 markets.
Really?
So, yep,
I did not know that.
The laws changed, the federal law changed in the late 70s. And so when you think about the largest, 100 large cities did not have cable. So it was these big franchise wars that went on, and every community was was going through franchising for cable television. So I did that for several years, moving around the country a little bit, always coming back to Tucson to work on that. And then spent some time in and out of economic development. Had a business for about a dozen years doing the kind of work you do, a lot of public relations work within the community. And then it was, as you mentioned, in 2002, I closed out the business and went to work for then Governor Napolitano, and was with her for 6 years. Started running the Southern Arizona office, and tell people who have that job and have had it, the best job you're ever going to have. It's running the Southern Arizona office means you're in about 7 counties in all the time. You're in Phoenix a couple days a week, which is great, to stay connected there, and you get to live in Tucson, so it's wonderful. But then I moved up to Phoenix and was the director of the Department of Commerce for a while, and then was Governor Napolitano's chief of staff, and that's where I was when she went on to Homeland Security. So I moved with her to D.C.
And that was in 08 or 09,
yeah,
wasn't
09.
it?
We moved in January of 09. That's right. And then was chief of staff at Homeland Security. I told the governor, then secretary, I'd go for a year, and I went for just about 15 months, like any good Tucsonan.
Yeah.
About that year I was there, they were calling Snowmageddon. That I think government closed down 4 times.
Yeah.
With the snow
Yeah.
and the ice, and I thought, well, I think this is a really good time to head back to Arizona. I love visiting D.C. There's extraordinary things to do and see, but what a great place this is to live. And then, so since I've been back, I, again, very, very fortunate, went to work right as soon as I got back for the county, and that was in 2010, late in 2010, and fortunately I haven't looked back.
Yeah.
So it's been
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I love the East Coast as well. I love going D.C., New York.
Oh, gosh.
I
Any
haven't
place-
been in a
yeah.
few years because of all the craziness
COVID, crazy, yep.
that's going on. Matter of fact, we were there just prior at 19.
Oh, okay.
And that was going to become our new family because we went as a family, and,
Oh, sure.
and friends were all jumping on and like, yeah, I think
And
I'm
then
maybe
closed in.
ready to start
That time
going
again,
back.
there you
but
go.
There's such an
There's-
energy, and you
oh.
mentioned Phoenix. The same with Phoenix. There's just such an energy.
Boy, there
I lived
is.
there for
Yep.
12 years.
Okay.
We're breaking into that market with LTD, and it's fun to go there. But you know what? When I come home and I hit Tangerine Road, and then I get over to Moore Road.
Yeah.
I know there's just
Then
that.
you know you're home.
There's just that.
Yeah.
That
Well,
feeling I'm back.
And there's, I think one of the things people feel they have to do, it's sort of genetic to say I'm from Tucson, so I hate Phoenix.
Yeah.
But I don't. I'm
Yeah,
like
no,
you.
I don't either.
It's a little bit like the East Coast. I love now whenever I have a return ticket in my pocket, I love being there. There's so much to do and see. And then when you go to Phoenix, again, so much to do and see. And I think for me, I lived in the downtown area and I worked at the Capitol, so it was all downtown. But you have to get around the community. And I can still remember the first time telling someone, giving him an idea of how close I was, saying, well, I've just got on the 50 when I hit the 202, and the moment you start talking in like freeway lingo, it's okay. I'm almost a native in Phoenix now too.
Yeah. I grew up. We lived in the late '80s, early '90s, where they built the stadium.
Oh, sure. Well,
the Cardinal Stadium, and you know what? We were in. My wife said at the time, Clint, we're in the country.
Oh, yeah.
We weren't.
Not quite,
but
pretty darn
we
close.
kinda were.
What is it? You can see it from
That was
there.
a pig farm at one
It
time,
was.
if you remember
all
that.
area.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh, golly.
And now you go out there now, and it's just the growth out there is
Everything.
just crazy. So let's move on into some of where we're at right now, because I want to know as a county administrator, and I asked this question to Dr. Lee.
Yeah.
I want to know a couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
What keeps you awake at night? number one, and the other is what also do you wake up every morning that you're so it's kind of a two-parter, but that you're so excited, and you can choose any order you want to answer those in. But I want to know what really, because as we all know, we have issues like everybody else, right?
Sure.
But there are also things that when you get up in the morning, you cannot wait to get in there.
Start working on it. You betcha.
Start working on it.
That's right. Well, I think we'll save the best for last, I guess, and start with some of the things that keep me up at night. And I'll tell you, it's a couple different things we'll chat about, but really the safety of the community. Yeah. And by that, we're just finishing up the budget. And I'll tell you, we've had tentative budget adoption. We have final budget adoption on the 18th of this month. And that'll probably be when I sleep through the night for the first time, because it's we've got about 7,400 employees, so it's not only each one of those individuals, but their families. What are we doing? How are we serving the community? But I draw back on the time when I had my own business. I could make decisions about how to spend money, and it impacted me and my employees, and we made those determinations. And now I make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors about how to spend a lot of other people's money. And that weighs on me. What is it? Where's that balancing act? Where do we, how much do we need to ensure that the people of this community are safe, that they have the infrastructure they need, that they have parks, they have some of those amenities as well, to want this to be a community. But we can't just, every time we need a little more money, decide to increase the tax rate. So that is a struggle for me. And I think one of the worries more recently, I think for everybody, and when I say this the last couple of years, our workforce, keeping people is tough. We mentioned the pandemic. I will just say that's behind us now, but I don't think anyone slept through the night for a while. And I that's how, I'll tell you, we've mentioned, again, Mayor Ed and Terry, the community of the mayors and all the managers really began working together, talking a couple times a day during the pandemic. When I know as the public health entity, a lot of folks looked to the county and we worked together with many people saying, boy, it feels like you're just making up rules as you go along. And the answer was, of course, that we were making up rules as we went along. And all of us sit back now and think, well, jeepers, if we'd done this, that maybe a little differently. But that was tough. And then I think the issue, and I'm sure you got into it with Shane Clark, these days the border keeps me up at night. We have, as a county, been in the business of assisting legal asylum seekers as they transition through the community. We've been doing it since 2019. And we are the only community in the country that has not had street release, which that's something about which we are very proud. And people like Shane Clark and others have worked very hard. But I'll tell you, the important part there is that, I would say taxpayer money hasn't paid for it. That's not true. Because taxpayers pay for it, but it's your federal dollars. We don't use any of the Pima County general fund budget. So I think by using federal dollars, we also are using taxpayers' dollars from Iowa and Oklahoma, other places as well. But the bottom line for me, and I think the county has been since the beginning, the only options for Customs and Border Protection for people who are here legally. And again, I don't make that determination. CBP makes that determination and bring folks to us. If we don't have a place for them to be, they are released in Tucson. The designated site is the Greyhound bus station. We have been hitting numbers in excess of 1,000, and I just try to envision our community of 1,000 people a day, families, little kids, single adult males, everybody in between. We're released at the bus station every day. It doesn't take long for bad to happen, I fear, for those individuals and for the community. So making sure that we have the right services in place, making sure that we keep the federal dollars coming, making sure that what we're doing is responding to a problem and not enabling a problem, which is always a balance we look at. And, that is tough. That has been an issue. One that's just really, I'll just say, top of mind right now. You mentioned heat and sort of the joke that, it's hot, it's Tucson. We just passed some regulations at the county relating to our employees about heat, and that's been the comment sometimes about what's new, what's different. It's always been hot. Well, we do learn lessons along the way, and there is a reality that when we have men and women out working on the streets or working on the roof of buildings, that we need to just be thoughtful about making sure they have water and they get a break and they can come inside now and then, or maybe have a long sleeve shirt. Just little things that we know we can do better. What we've done as a county is not start with any regulation of government of businesses or anyone else. So we need to get our own house in order first. So all of our rules deal with our employees, and then we'll start figuring out what works to make sure we're getting water out to everybody.
I want to jump in here real quick and compliment you on something and make a point. You mentioned a couple of times in our conversation so far that you owned your own business at various points. I think that's really, really important as far as leadership in a public environment, that you know the responsibility as an individual, because we get to almost act like kings, or we get to do kind of whatever our budget allows us to do.
That's right.
And so that gives us one perspective.
Right.
And yet when you're responsible now to the taxpayers, the citizens, that's another requirement, another perspective. But I love that you were able to bring that business knowledge to this, right? Do you understand where I'm kind of going with that?
I do, Clint, and I tell you that it hits me every day.
That makes you broader and more rounded as far as making decisions, because you can empathize with someone, say like myself, that's a business owner.
I sure hope so.
Because you were.
Well, and and what I look at. We said, in a small business, probably like yours, and many folks who might be listening now, it's anywhere from 3 to 6 employees as the years went by, over a dozen years. I hate to say it this way, but you eat what you kill. It's if you're bringing money in the door, then the lights stay on and the employees stay, with you.
I love that line, by the way. I'm going to keep that one.
But you can't just decide to go find a new revenue source if you want to do something. Right. You have to really make sure that expenses and revenues, all balance out. And sadly, I think it's helped me ultimately, but I really look at a county budget. We're just about $1.8 billion, and I, in many ways, think of it as my own checkbook.
Yeah,
that it's
because your prior experiences, it was your own checkbook.
It was, and I'm a local taxpayer, and that knowing that anything that we plus up, or if we add to some programs, it means that others may dwindle down. So that's that challenge. But I do think you're right. Again, I think of when I was at Homeland Security, there's 240,000 employees, and so and you can I think in some ways it's more difficult to run the business that's 3 to 6 people.
Oh, absolutely.
But, I knew them. I knew their families.
Absolutely.
240,000 are people all over the world, and I'm going to meet a couple of them.
Yeah, I've always said that. It's either one's pretty easy because it's just you.
It's just you.
Or a couple hundred's fairly easy because you're not dependent on any one person.
Yeah.
It's that 3, 6, 8, 12. Now we are in a.
Yep.
It's tough.
It's tough.
It's really tough because I've been on both sides as well.
Give
me a few hundred. That's pretty cool. I got room for error in there.
Yeah.
If I've got 3, 6, 8 people, there's no really room to make a mistake at all.
There's no extra.
Not only finances, but management, etc.
That's right. That's right. And really learning to trust those folks.
Exactly.
Because when you have a small business, everybody's got to have everybody else's back.
We're experiencing that right now, and people that have come to us are for the first time discovering, hey, this works more like a family than it does what I'm comfortable or used to.
That's right.
And that learning curve is sometimes slower than what you'd think. Just because my arms are open doesn't mean that translates to the other person.
That's exactly right. And then it gets that again. I think part of the reason it is more frightening is the hiring and firing. I always hear, it's so you can't ever fire anybody in government. Well, I don't know anybody who enjoys firing anybody, even if it's your own business and it's small. So that's a concern.
That's never.
But that's never good.
Because you know what? When I have had to let people go, I can't even use the word.
Yeah.
I always felt like I failed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That I either didn't hire the right person or didn't provide the right
management,
train them,
and
right leadership. So I always took it personal, like
I
had failed, even if maybe it wasn't my responsibility, because I have to deal with it.
Oh, Clint,
and I'm letting somebody go that was probably
I
depending on that paycheck for
absolutely what's going to happen
live,
tonight in their house. Yeah. Well, and that's you're so right. It's the whenever we've let someone go, at the county, it's the same thing. That frequently, I look at some of these jobs, and it was our failure that we put the wrong person in the wrong job. And often we have people who are doing a tremendous job, in whatever it is they're doing. And as we move folk around, sometimes we put people in a new position and don't do the job we need to be doing to train them. And we put them in the wrong job. We don't support them correctly necessarily, and they fail. It shouldn't be a surprise,
Right.
but that's on us. And so that's one of the things we've been working on.
And
is
that,
hoping to
and
fix that.
when you're dealing with the numbers of people that you're dealing with, that's just bound to happen.
It just is. You're right.
I mean, that's just a numbers game that you're not going to always get it right.
Everybody's made a bad hiring
Yeah,
decision,
yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Except my bosses.
Yeah.
They just, they got it right every time. Right?
Yeah. Or as my pastor Craig Coulter says, if you don't admit that, then you're lying.
Well, that is so true. But what I love about it, what I'm doing, I'll just tell you that.
Yeah,
the thing
I want
that,
it.
Well, it is. It sounds hokey, and you hate to say it sometimes, but it's service to this community. Again, this is my hometown. What's the best I can do? And it's to try to help provide some direction and counsel to our board and to the employees. And I have this benefit that where I park, I come up out of a garage and I walk by a bus bench. And so every day I can see people who are, many are coming into work. Sometimes they're headed home. Sometimes there's people on that bus bench that don't have jobs, and that's just kind of where they're living right now. And I get to see so many different people, but to have a chance to say thank you and hello and, how's your day going? Because we can also get pretty removed, from the things we're doing. And so that good news of saying, the frightening part, if you will, of saying we're going to have a new policy and here's something that's going to happen, to be able to say, okay, here's been the positive results.
Right.
In the just a couple years ago, our board took on as one of their key goals becoming an employer of choice, if you will, and really trying to make sure our employees had what they need. We're never going to pay more than anybody else, but what can we do for the environment? Right. When I got into this seat, we were running at about 21% turnover, vacancy rate. That costs everybody money.
Right.
And so a lot has gone into being focused on keeping our employees, retaining them, getting good talent, and keeping them. And we now are at about 12%.
I'll cut it almost in half.
Almost in half. And the other
was there one particular area of that 21 that was there a
it's a couple
or
of
was it across,
things, I think. Yeah, we did a couple of things. One, we just are finishing up a big classification compensation study, and we looked at every single position and is everyone not only where they need to be, but do we have people do we have people in a position where they can see a future? If they're here today, here's what the trajectory might look like. And that was really a challenge. The last time it had been done countywide was in 1957. So I think like any business, you may go in and fix this little bucket, or did we need the doctors? Do we need engineers? But we looked at across the county. And when you take 7,400 people and touch each one of them individually, mistakes get made, or it's just not as easy for everyone. Historically, we go out as government and say everybody gets 2% or something, and that's much easier to process than those individual pieces. We've provided some more flexibility, I think, which is, Clint, you and I, I'm looking you in the eyes, and I think you and I are close enough to understand our generation, if I may loop you into mine with this.
Absolutely.
It's a different world in that, particularly after the pandemic, prior to COVID-19, the county didn't allow telecommuting. And so we had to pretty much turn on a dime, to change that. Then these kids today, Clint, the younger generation is
our
looking.
Children,
that's
our
right.
Children.
You're being kind. Our grandchildren, but they're looking for flexibility. I think we grew up and you got a job, you bought a house, you put down the roots, and here's where we stay. And folks now, and God bless them, want to be able to move, want to be able to try a new city, want to. They're not necessarily tied to their desk 2,080 hours, every year. They'd like to go on vacation. They like the breaks with their family. And it's wonderful to see people embrace that work-life balance, perhaps more than our generation did. But we needed to create the new policies to allow that to occur,
Right.
to allow for the flexibility, to allow the working mom to work in 8:30 to 5:30 instead of 8 to 5. Things so simple,
Right.
but helps people get their kid to a
Right.
daycare facility, things like that.
Right.
And I'll tell you that we have seen, where I really have seen the proof in the pudding is from when we started this, the applicants we get. If we used to get 3 applicants, we get 50. So I hear music rolling in, which
Are we
is telling
doing
me.
something, David? Yeah, we're going to do a little commercial break.
Good.
We'll be back in a minute.
Discover the power of 88 Crime, where your anonymous tips are rewarded with cash. When you call in anonymously with a tip, you are given a code. With the code and a password, you can walk into a bank and redeem your reward anonymously. If your anonymous tip results in a felony arrest, you can claim up to $2,500 cash reward. Let's stop the silence on crime and strive for a safer community. For more information, please visit 88crime.org or call 88crime.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, CopperCreekCookies.net.
We can print anything on our soft vanilla logo cookies. We deliver them and other sweet treats locally. We are located at 4249 West Ina Road, Suite 121. Call us 520-300-1131. We bake smiles.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, CopperCreekCookies.net.
Are you looking to establish a powerful online presence for your brand? Look no further than Live the Dream Media. Our team of experts possess the capabilities and skills necessary to make it happen. From creating compelling content to analyzing data and making strategic decisions, we've got it covered. Don't let a lack of social media know-how hold you back. Visit ltdmedia.net for more information.
Hi, I'm Alan Murdoch. For the past 20 years, I've been buying, fixing, and selling properties right here in Southern Arizona. And I want to buy your property. Whether it's a house, apartment, commercial building, or vacant land, regardless of the condition or the situation, I want to talk to you. When you sell to me, I pay cash and it's hassle-free. No repairs, no closing costs, and no commissions. If you have a property you don't want to deal with and you want a quick solution, call, text, or visit selltalon.com. Again, that's selltalon.com.
Hi, I'm Melissa Zuppi, running for the Marana Town Council. As a resident of Marana, I've witnessed the positive growth that has created a strong community where people in all stages of life want to live. Unfortunately, with growth comes traffic. One of my top priorities and goals is to work towards securing funding for the improvement of Marana's high-traffic I-10 interchanges and local roadways. Let's keep Marana moving forward together. Vote Melissa Zuppi, Marana Town Council.
Hi, I'm Ed Honey, and I'm running for mayor of the town of Marana. I can assure you that if you have water now in the town of Marana, you will have it for the rest of your life. Water is not going to go away. Our water table in North Marana has gone from 300 feet down to 140 feet at the current status. Water will be here forever. Please support Melissa Zuppi, Roxanne Ziegler, and Ed Honey for Marana Town Council.
Okay, we are back. We are back. We're having fun.
We're having a great time.
We
It's
sat right
good.
here, got all wound up, so this thing might run till noon.
Yeah.
So just a heads up.
Clean your day.
Ed, we're going to be late for lunch.
Oh, yeah. Ed and I'm going to come. Next time.
Next time.
Yeah.
Next time we've got her committed. So we're still talking right now. We're in that. What makes you,
Yep.
what excites you? And let's
Yeah.
just pick up where you left off. Because
Well,
there's a lot of, you know what? In reality, we all know there's a lot of stuff going on in the world.
Yeah.
We're being
Oh, yeah.
bombarded. The other night, I felt like almost an assault was taking place inside my head with what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
And yet, there's so much good. Our company is called Live the Dream Media.
Yeah.
And it's on purpose. Hey, it's okay to talk about the bad. We can't ignore it.
We better learn
But let's
from it.
focus
Absolutely.
on the good and how we can get more
That's right.
out of that.
Yeah.
So jump back in here.
Well, working with the people, working with this community is great. And I think one of the things that I think the county should be proud of, and I hope is proud of, is that we've been really working hard to fix the streets. I think that, a couple of years ago, it's all we ever heard was fix the roads. And we front-loaded some money. We've put in about $200 million in the last couple of years. And what I don't hear, I do hear it now and then. Of course, we all do. There's a pothole. But whenever I went anywhere, the number one issue was fix the roads. And I'm not hearing that, in the same way anymore. So that's good. And this is a double-edged sword. One of the good things, what that keeps me going is exciting, is how we are working as a community to try desperately to deal with the issue, if you will, of fentanyl and drugs and homelessness, and how these issues are wrapping around together. That I think in this town, and I want just people to understand from the get-go here, I'm not suggesting that homeless is a crime. Being homeless isn't a crime, but there are sometimes where I see people and I think they're using almost the facade of being homeless or acting as if they were homeless to conduct illegal activity.
Exactly.
And that is a shame. So how do we attack this problem? I meet with businesses who, the ones that really get my attention. I think I'm going to mention Monica Carlson, and she and her family have a small company. And when I first met her, was the concerns that a family can't come, her children maybe after school, can't necessarily come to the business. It's not safe in that neighborhood. But you and I were talking about those small businesses. If your legacy to your children and your family is your business, it has to remain successful. And if it's not successful because knuckleheads are sleeping in the parking lot buying fentanyl, then we own that as a government, and we need to help with that. And I always figure that if I sit down long enough and chart this out, we can figure out the beginning to work through the program, and how do we solve the problem.
Right.
And this is a chart that looks like a web, because it's the Justice Service, it's probation, it's law enforcement, it's some people need to go to jail.
Yeah.
Some people need help. Some people need assistance. What's staggering to me, again, I think growing up in this town, again, Tucson High, I look at is that foundation, and I think back to the day, and that when I was in school, every now and then, a fight would break out, and you'd always hear about it, and a lot of fists were pulled. There were no knives. There were no guns.
I know it. Isn't that crazy?
And maybe people had beer. And then as I was getting, right before I graduated, every now and then you'd hear somebody had marijuana. Yeah. There was no fentanyl. There were no drugs. There were no opioids. But just we all do stupid stuff as kids. The consequences are so much more difficult for these kids today.
We were talking the other day about this because, again, we're of the same generation. And I grew up in the Midwest in a small community. And I don't know for certain, but I know at one time or another I had a gun rack in the car. Or in the truck, I should say. Yeah. I was in the truck, not the car. And I guarantee you there were weapons on school property during school time with unlocked cars, but no one ever thought of going and getting their gun and getting a weapon. It was, like you say, an occasional fist fight. Yeah. And I don't know what happened during that time frame in the 70s when I grew up.
And when I grew up,
and now that we now... and you and I don't have enough time to, and nor do we know the solution to this. No. But it is amazing because you see those same streets.
Absolutely.
That you grew up on, and they're not the same streets that you grew up on.
Clint, you're so right. And that what I see is it used to be that there was a section of town that we knew you might see someone living on the street. I don't care where you go in the communities now.
It's staggering, isn't it?
All over town. And I think... when I think about what is it now, fentanyl's like 10 cents or something. We lost a kid that we loved, that we've known forever. Yep. Lost him a couple of years ago to just. Yeah.
And I didn't even recognize that there was a problem, or I would have went to him, hey,
and you don't,
come on, what are we doing? Until it was too late, and it was, what do we do? What we do?
And as you're describing it, a good kid, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely, a great kid. No.
Same thing.
I think it's the ease of getting it, and it's the cost. There's no real,
no downside almost.
Yeah, no.
And And people don't necessarily know they're getting it, even.
Why,
it's just
we don't,
little amounts.
in this
and
case, we don't
that's
think he
right.
knew what he was actually
what he was doing. That's it.
Yeah, and it's
that's,
devastating. I mean, it's just when I think about it right now, and it's been 3 years. It's just
I'm so sorry.
crushing
Yes, it is.
that and yet we were out the other day at the Crime 88 or 88 Crime event.
Oh, the
I was
dinner.
on Grant,
Saturday, yep.
and I was just.
It's everywhere. It's
I was
everywhere.
just, I knew it was there, and yet I hadn't seen it with my own eyes in a while. Because honestly, I don't go south the river a whole lot, to be honest about
Yeah.
it. I mean,
But you're welcome. Come on down.
and I came and saw you guys.
But that's right.
And I do
That's-
want to get back. I want to
okay.
touch on that briefly before
But
our time is done. But you know what? What a challenge.
Well, and
For someone in your position, because it's easy for me to drive down the street and say there's a pothole, or there's homeless or drug use taking place. Anybody can armchair quarterback
but we got
and point out the problems.
this
But
out,
people like yourself, you're in the hot seat on trying to figure out ways. I want you to know, we stand fully with our arms open.
Thank you. We're gonna
Anything
need
that you
everybody.
think we could do with public service announcements,
Thank you.
anything you could think of that we might be able to offer, we got to address this problem.
Thank you. And I'll tell you, I'll be in touch.
Yeah,
Because
please.
that's the, we
love these people. I don't want to see people
that's right.
on the. I don't want to see anybody hurting.
No.
I just don't.
Well,
and
and everybody's a little different. It's some are there because they choose to live there. Some have, again, there may be a substance issue involved.
Yeah.
There's so many different reasons.
Yeah.
But at some point, I worry about them, and then we protect our community. So how do we? What's the whole
How do we
partnering
balance
like?
that? Yeah.
And how do we make sure we're taking care of everybody and it's and bringing in we need the courts involved. Again, law enforcement, everybody needs to be involved. And then one of our issues here, and again, Terry, Rosema, Ed have been such great partners. Everyone has been in that. I think we really saw the movement of the community. We saw it with COVID. I see it a little with animal care. People don't know necessarily if they're driving down the street where Oro Valley ends and Marana begins.
I'm
or
glad
something,
you brought that up because
and-
that's such an issue.
Well, it was an issue. I remember thinking back during the pandemic when different communities had different rules. Said, do you wear a mask, not wear a mask, where do you go? I said, so if you left downtown and drove home up Oracle on your way home, you could get through three different incorporated jurisdictions and unincorporated and have different rules. Or what I've looked at in animal care, a couple of the communities work with Humane Society, a couple of the communities work with animal care, and we define those lines very clearly. Dogs don't care in that same way.
No, right.
That's Marana, I won't go over there.
Yeah.
So we better figure out, so many more ways to cooperate.
Yeah.
And we're so lucky that we've got those that ability to at least talk to each other a little bit.
And that, again, mentioned off camera, Ed and I talk a lot.
Yep.
Ed and I are buddies.
Yeah.
And there's one word that comes up: relationships.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Relationships. I always use this analogy. I've been married to my wife for 33 years. We worked together most of those 33
my.
years. We carpooled together.
Oh, my.
For most of those 33 years, we have been basically in each other's grill every day. I don't recommend it for everybody, by the way. But in our case, we were able to make it happen, make it work.
Yeah.
Now, here's my point. You think Tammy and I have agreed on everything over those 33 years?
That's right, yeah.
We disagree a lot. Never about the big stuff, but always of parenting and the whole thing.
Sure.
And yet, never once, and I use this analogy a lot with people, never once has it affected our love for each other. The disagreement we're having over, I like it warmer, I like it colder, I don't want, right?
Right.
And so when we can learn to really have those type of hard discussions with each other, knowing that I care about you as an individual and I care about the outcome, because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, don't we?
And we represent the same people, and
We
you're
all want the
absolutely
same
right.
10 things.
Yeah, right. And we want to enjoy our life here in this community and be able to feed our families. Enjoy
Have
the
a
beautiful-
nice
right.
home,
Yep.
drive a nice vehicle, take a nice vacation, have a
right.
good education
Feel
for our
safe.
children.
Yeah.
You mentioned something a while ago, and I think this is just the way it works in bureaucracy. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying how it works. You mentioned that there hadn't been a study of what was it?
The classification
since the 50s.
Yeah.
I've heard other jurisdictions or school districts say, we haven't checked that since 2002, or we haven't done a study on that since the 1980s. And I'm like, see, again, that's where I'm going to, as a small business operator, and there's 31 million of us in the United States, and we're the lifeblood, we're the backbone of the community, and so I'm always an advocate for small businesses. Yeah. We all want to be big business, so we're not anti-big business here at all. We all want to be the next big business, but we understand our role in the economy. We can't do that. We have to stay basically engaged every day. If something's not working, well, why isn't it working? Is it something we should abandon right now? Now, we're able to do it a lot easier because we're not this big ocean liner with 7,400 people on it.
But you're so right. We can study things to death. And in your business, you don't have that option.
I don't. Yeah, it's just like you say, we eat what we kill. I love that line, so I'm going to use that a lot.
But it's
I'll always give you JL.
That's all right. But I give it to you. How's that?
Okay, cool. Yeah, because that could get laborious. That's like quoting the Bible and always having to throw.
No, that's right. Don't question it. We're in good shape. Yeah. So it's a.
But you get where I'm coming from.
I do.
You know what? I don't want to see bureaucracy spending tons of time all the time, because now we can get overbloated on that. But don't you think that's part of the problems that we have is we don't address issues till they become like a problem? Then we
always that I think a couple of things, Clint, as you hit the nail on the head. There's enough things on our desk that you kind of push something aside if it's not on fire.
Yeah, right.
And then when it becomes on fire, then you look at it. Right. So we don't do that as well as we might. And then, so we said words like nimble and quick are not generally associated with government.
No, no.
But I will say the other side of the coin is that I'm spending your money again. That I could make decisions very quickly when I had a business, because what we do is, so whoever was out in the car stopped at the office supply store, and got what we needed. It was all right. But when we make decisions at the county, even if it's a small, and the smallest item multiplied for 7,400 becomes a large item quickly. And if we're going to go out and buy computers, just an example, or something, there needs to be a procurement process. It needs to be transparent and open, and let everyone look at it, because we are spending your money. And I think that's why things do move slowly, or at least not as quickly as many of us would like sometimes, because we really have to make sure. I can, when I had a business or in other times, I can gamble a little. I could say, I think we're going to try this. But I guess wrong when we're buying $10 million or something.
You're dead right. And I think and that needs to be discussed more. I guess maybe that's where I would say we could do a better job.
Absolutely.
Because you're right, and we talk about it a lot here. This is a risk.
Yeah.
But it's our risk.
Right.
When you take a risk, you're taking our risk. And that's not something most people are comfortable with, nor should they be.
No, should they be. I want everybody to understand, have an opportunity to see what we're thinking about doing and be ready for it.
Don't you think, though, a lot of this is, well, I know it is, but I'm going to ask it as a question anyway. Don't you think a lot of this is, again, someone, the average taxpayer, and I'm not criticizing them, I'm just saying the way it is, they only react to the headline. They're not paying any attention to the minutia or they're just focused on something their neighbor maybe told them. Maybe they're not even reacting to a headline. And I think it's the responsibility of we the people to stay engaged. Well, to go to your board meetings, go to your real quick story.
Yeah, sure.
I grew up in Opdyke, Illinois. Out in the middle of southern Illinois, beautiful place to grow up. We had our own ballpark in the backyard. My parents were. Wow. My mother's still with us, but they were awesome. So we had that Norman Rockwell
picture. It come to life.
And so 200 people actually lived in this little town that I grew up in. Now, there was 200 people every 2 miles. And,
different
so we weren't isolated. But so 200 people were in this community. You know how many people showed up at the PTA meetings? No. 200.
Sure. Yeah, that's
okay,
right.
So now flash forward 30 years. Our kids are in school. This was when we still lived in Phoenix. They were going to a school that had 900 children in it. Hey, honey, we better get to school quick because 900 kids in this school, we're going to be packed. We won't even find a parking place. There were seven people in that room, counting the two of us.
Yeah.
And that's when right then we decided we need to move, and we need to move to where the best schools in the state are, and they were here.
Right.
They were Amphi and Marana, so that was our two choices, right?
Yep.
So I see what I'm saying is, or at least where I think I'm going with this, that's a lack of community involvement. The system didn't necessarily change.
Well, but we need to do a better job. I'm with you. It's good to have
But
people
we need
show
to
up.
do a better job communicating.
And we need
hey,
to let people
get
know where
involved.
the information is.
Exactly.
You know, that we do have at least our board meetings are in the morning at 9 a.m. Not everyone has the luxury to be able to attend those meetings. Our job, I think, is to make sure that then the rest of the public is aware of what's happening, how they can provide us information, how they can email, how they can send in, leave voice messages. We still need to hear from those folks, and we need to do a better job.
You know, I don't always go. I go occasionally. Over the years,
Yep.
I've gone different things. Excuse me, I was working with the White Sox at one point and was involved in all that, and you were behind the scenes with the and I was in on that. But I watch a lot. I'm one of those guys that I know every Tuesday, 9 o'clock, I'm gonna pop in and check out a board meeting and see what's going on. And let's be honest about it. To the average viewer, this isn't primetime TV. There's a lot. It's long. It's drawn out.
That's right.
I don't want to use the word boring, but it
some might.
It could be, But
Yeah.
but still, that is I consider that kind of my responsibility. The old saying is, you can't complain if you don't vote. Well, you also can't complain if you're not at least
involved.
engaged in the conversation when it's taking place. Is that fair enough to say?
Absolutely
And I
is.
think the government could do a better job
And
of
we
that.
can. I think
But I also think this is a two-way street.
I think one of the things that we've done, again, the last couple of years, we've started a newsletter. Yeah, we do get out, but what I started not that long ago, I guess it's called Under the Dome, and the idea was once a month, my newsletter goes out, if you will, and my rule was 4 stories, no more. And if you look at your phone, you can get all the information you need.
I see him.
If you want to hit a link, you want to go to something else, you can learn. But if you just pick up your phone, there's at least 4 big facts. We did the budget, and here's what it costs. We're opening XYZ, so that people can see a little bit of information about the county and not be as quickly as it can be. We got to learn more. And here's a final link. But we're trying to get information out.
I think because I'm new to the digital world, by the way. This guy back here, David Samarano, and he's doing a great job in the booth as he always does. But he turned me onto it, and it was an advertising thing that I did in 2019 when they reopened the Ina Road exit, and we were promoting. And Tammy and I spent a lot of money on TV ads, and it just didn't work. And it was. It wasn't surprising, and yet it was sort of surprising with the amount of money that we invested in TV ads that we didn't really get any results. And this young man back here at the David said, Clint, we don't do it that way anymore. And so we turned that into a business, and it's flourished, and we're excited and all that good stuff. I will say this about Pima County. I think your digital presence is pretty strong. I see a lot of activity from the Humane Society, from different. You're always on. I can watch the meetings online. I think you're promoting your people. Somebody had a birthday. Somebody had a celebration, and we're going to touch on that real briefly here in a minute. But I think you guys do a pretty good job of providing information to the community digitally, for sure. Well, I really believe
Clint,
that.
I will pass those thanks to those who deserve it, and we have a really strong team.
Yeah, I think you do a good job.
Who've helped, a little probably like you, I guess. Kicking and screaming, I figured it out. Because it's all
I was
I don't
anti.
Facebook,
Oh my goodness.
I don't know, but anyway. But you're right. We have to. We live in that world, and that's what we're doing.
That's the world we're in.
Yeah.
So I want to touch on something you're getting ready to do later today. Yeah.
This is one of those bittersweet things, I think. But what really started during the pandemic was getting managers together regularly. And it stayed. It stuck, even if we don't have a pandemic. And the group of managers, with Terry Rosema, of course, and Shane Dilley and Sarita, Jeff Wilkins, and now has joined us, the newer gentleman out in Oro Valley. and Mike Ortega, who's the manager of the city of Tucson, and me. And Mike is retiring. Well, I just can't believe that one quite yet. So we'll see where he perks his head up. But tonight is a dinner to honor him, and all of the managers are going together.
Oh, that's awesome.
For that. And I think that's what's great. We laugh when we meet virtually every other week, and I look at these issues. Pima County is suing the city of Tucson over water. Okay, as Ed will tell you, we've not always gotten along on wastewater, but it is there's more about which we can agree,
Right.
and it's not personal.
Yeah. No.
But but we're always talking about well, what are you doing, and how'd you fix this, and what would you recommend, and what might work for you, and we keep talking about wouldn't it be great if my dream down the road is there's like one. A portal, if you will, online. And if you want to work in government, you can go there.
Right.
I said, let's say your background's finance. Well, you go to that and it'll tell you where's the job open.
Yep.
And it might be Sorita, it might be Pima County, but you don't have to go to each of those communities. And wouldn't it be lovely if we got to a place where if you want to promote, maybe that next job is in another jurisdiction, but then we trade back and forth, and that because the way that we are trying to lure employees from other communities is to raise the, pay more, which is good, but then it's the same tax base,
Exactly,
right, that
right.
we're touching. And so we have just been so blessed with the five of us as managers who get along well. We're, again, not agreeing on things, but we're
You know
to
what?
be able to
If
be
you were,
something. I
then
don't agree
there
with
would-
me all the time. That's jeepers.
But if all five were getting, or any two were getting along all the time, I would start questioning
Little
them. Like,
concerned.
what's
That's right.
going on here?
A little
I need
dynamic
to see,
tension.
Yes.
Yeah, makes it better.
I'm a man of faith. And when you're talking about this, I just think about the second commandment: love your neighbor as yourself.
Yep.
It's hard to do, by the way. I'm going to be the first one to say that is
gotta-
probably the toughest one of the bunch. but
there's a lot of them we got to remind ourselves every now and think, touch that base now and then, and so tonight is we get to say goodbye to Mike, but it's one of those great examples of we're all going to be there together, to do that.
Right.
And I get to see my good friends who are Terry and Shane and Jeff.
Yeah.
Excuse me, and so that's what's great, and it's the same with Ed. I mean, he'll. You'll hear about it today. Mayor Ed will come up to me at a PAG meeting or something and say, "I am so mad at you," and I think, about which thing today? And then we hug. We talk about when we're going to get together. But it's we are. This is one of the best times I've seen about that in the valley with everybody, hopefully with their eye on the same ball.
Say what you just said again.
I said, in many ways, it's one of the best times I've seen in this valley. And
That's
we're focusing on bad.
That's really that we could stop right there, and we're probably going to pretty shortly. But you know what? I love to hear that.
We got some problems, but we're working together to fix them.
We're
And
never going to
that's-
solve the problems. It's kind of like I'm with the Marana Food Bank.
Yeah,
we
you're
talk about this
always-
all the time. Stamp out hunger. You can't.
No.
That's not. That's a
Probably
noble.
not in my
that's
lifetime,
a
but
noble
yeah.
goal to shoot for. But I don't think it's in anybody's lifetime.
But what can we do together until
But
then?
how can we minimize that?
That's right.
And how can we lift those out that are in those positions?
You got
know
it.
what? I
Clint,
hear the
it was
music.
so
yeah.
good to meet you and to
can
get a chance to chat.
Can I ask you right now on camera to commit to coming back?
Anytime.
Okay,
Anytime.
I'm going to hold her to
You
that,
got
folks.
it.
Hey, thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate it. Don't forget Marana Foodie. This is Marana, our mother station, Live the Dream Media. All of our sponsors, we appreciate all of you. David, thank you for doing a rock solid job as you always do back there. We love you guys for listening. Thank you. Have a great day.